The New York Yankees are making waves this offseason with multiple roster moves that are sending shockwaves through the baseball world, and one of these transactions just proved beyond any shadow of doubt that Brian Cashman pulled off one of the most lopsided trades in recent memory. While the baseball universe focuses on the big-name free agents and blockbuster deals dominating headlines, the Yankees are quietly building depth and addressing critical roster needs with surgical precision. But here's what has everyone talking. A trade that happened months ago is now being vindicated in spectacular fashion, and it completely changes the conversation around the Yankees' shortstop position heading into next season. The Yankees front office has been incredibly active, making a flurry of moves that signal their intentions for the upcoming campaign. The biggest splash so far has been bringing Trent Grisham back on a qualifying offer, giving the team a proven defensive center fielder who can contribute immediately. But the moves don't stop there. The Yankees have been working overtime to shore up organizational depth at multiple positions, and some of these under-the-radar signings could have massive implications for how the roster shakes out when opening day arrives. One of the most intriguing additions is Jonathan Ornelas, who the Yankees just signed to a minor league contract. Now, before anyone gets too excited, let's be clear about what this signing represents. Ornelas is not coming in to save the franchise or solve all their problems at shortstop. He's organizational depth, the kind of player every competitive team needs scattered throughout their minor league system in case of emergency. Ornelas has played 32 games at the major league level with the Rangers and Braves between 2023 and 2025, so he's got a cup of coffee worth of big league experience under his belt. The scouting report on Ornelas is pretty straightforward. He can absolutely pick it defensively. The guy is a versatile fielder who's played second base, shortstop, third base, left field, and center field throughout his career. That kind of positional flexibility is catnip to front offices like the Yankees, who value the ability to shuffle players around as needed. Brian Cashman has always loved these Swiss Army knife-type players who can fill multiple roles without complaint, and Ornelas fits that profile perfectly. His glove work is legitimately impressive, and in a pinch, he could step in at shortstop and not embarrass himself defensively. But here's where the excitement needs to be tempered considerably. Jonathan Ornelas cannot hit to save his life. We're talking about truly brutal offensive numbers that would make even the most patient hitting coach lose their mind. Last year in AAA, Ornelas slashed an anemic 196, 295, and 303 across 115 games. Those are numbers that would get you benched on most college teams, let alone professional baseball. His major league track record is even worse, with just 53 career at-bats, resulting in a 208 batting average and a 522 OPS. In his 9 at-bats last season, he managed a 222 average, though obviously that sample size is way too small to draw meaningful conclusions from. The point is, Ornelas is not being brought in to solve the Yankees' offensive woes or provide any kind of meaningful production at the plate. He's insurance, depth, an emergency option who can play adequate defense at multiple positions if injuries ravage the roster. Think of him as organizational filler who might never see the inside of Yankee Stadium except as a spectator. But the fact that the Yankees felt compelled to add another shortstop to the organization, even on a minor league deal, tells you everything you need to know about their confidence level in their current situation at that position. Which brings us to the elephant pinstriped in the room, Anthony Volpe. The former top prospect, who was supposed to be the Yankees' shortstop of the future, had a rough second season in the majors, and that's being incredibly charitable. Volpe's struggles at the plate were painful to watch throughout 2024, and they culminated in him going down with an injury that's going to keep him sidelined into the start of next season. In 539 at-bats, Volpe managed just a .212 batting average with a .663 OPS and an OPS plus of 83. Those are numbers that would get most players demoted or benched, but because Volpe is young and was such a highly touted prospect, the Yankees kept running him out there hoping he'd figure things out. The reality is that opposing teams figured Volpe out. They game planned specifically to exploit his weaknesses, getting him to chase pitches out of the zone with alarming regularity. The scouting reports on Volpe were clear. Make him chase, don't give him anything to hit, and watch him get himself out. It worked with devastating effectiveness, and Volpe never made the necessary adjustments to counter what pitchers were doing to him. The question now becomes whether the Yankees are willing to admit they might have been wrong about Volpe being ready to be an everyday major league shortstop, or whether organizational pride will keep him in the lineup even if better options exist. Because here's the thing, the Yankees do have a better option. His name is Jose Trevino, and the trade that brought him to New York is looking more brilliant with each passing day. The Yankees acquired Trevino from the Tampa Bay Rays at the trade deadline in exchange for Everson Pereira, and at the time, it seemed like a reasonable swap of organizational depth for a utility infielder who could provide some flexibility down the stretch. What nobody fully anticipated was just how much of an upgrade Trevino would be compared to Volpe, and how completely Pereira would flame out with his new organization. Jose Trevino has been nothing short of a revelation since putting on pinstripes. In his limited time with the Yankees, Trevino slashed .266 with an .828 OPS, numbers that absolutely blow away anything Volpe produced all season. But the stats only tell part of the story. Trevino brought elite base running to the Yankees, swiping 15 stolen bases in his brief stint with the team. He demonstrated a phenomenal glove at shortstop with a cannon for an arm that made plays Volpe couldn't dream of making. Most importantly, he brought 3 home runs and 9 RBIs while showing the kind of baseball IQ and situational awareness that championship teams desperately need. In every conceivable way, Trevino proved he should be the Yankees' starting shortstop if the team doesn't make a significant external addition this offseason. He's better defensively, he's better offensively, he's better on the base paths, and he provides more consistent production. The only question is whether the Yankees front office has the courage to acknowledge reality and give Trevino the job he's earned, or whether they'll continue clinging to the hope that Volpe will somehow transform into the player they thought they were getting when he was a top prospect. And now, the trade that brought Trevino to New York is being vindicated in the most spectacular way possible. The Tampa Bay Rays, who acquired Everson Pereira from the Yankees in that same deal, just gave up on him after only 3 months. That's right, 3 months. The Rays traded Pereira to the Chicago White Sox in a multiplayer deal, sending him and minor league infielder Tanner Murray to Chicago in exchange for right-handers Yandris Gomez and Steven Wilson. The fact that Tampa Bay dumped Pereira this quickly tells you everything you need to know about how that experiment went. Everson Pereira was once considered one of the crown jewels of the Yankees farm system. He was ranked among baseball's top prospects and showed tantalizing tools that suggested he could develop into a quality major league outfielder. The Yankees signed him as an international free agent back in 2017, and he steadily climbed through the minor leagues, jumping from rookie ball all the way to AAA between 2021 and 2023. In 2023, he put up impressive numbers in the minors, slashing .300 with 18 home runs and 64 RBIs across 2 different levels. The future looked bright. But professional baseball has a way of humbling even the most promising prospects. Pereira got 27 games with the Yankees in 2023 and was completely overmatched, batting just .151 with 0 home runs in 93 at-bats. The strikeouts piled up, the confidence evaporated, and it became clear he wasn't ready for big league pitching. When the Yankees traded him to Tampa Bay, many observers thought the Rays might be able to unlock something the Yankees couldn't. Tampa Bay has a well-deserved reputation for maximizing underperforming players and getting production from cast-offs other teams gave up on. It didn't work. Pereira's time in Tampa Bay was a complete disaster. He managed just a .138 batting average with a pathetic .465 OPS. The Rays gave him every opportunity to prove he belonged, and he couldn't get the job done. So now he's on his 3rd organization in less than a year, heading to the Chicago White Sox, where expectations will presumably be much lower and the pressure less intense. Maybe a fresh start with the league's worst team will help Pereira find his footing, but at this point, it's looking increasingly likely that he'll never live up to the prospect hype that once surrounded him. Meanwhile, the Yankees are sitting pretty with Jose Trevino, who has been everything they could have possibly hoped for and more. The trade is already looking like highway robbery, and it's only going to look better as time goes on. The Yankees gave up a struggling outfield prospect they had no room for on their major league roster, and got back a legitimate starting caliber shortstop who immediately upgraded their defense and offense. That's textbook smart roster management, and it's exactly the kind of move championship organizations need to make. The beauty of the Trevino acquisition is that it gives the Yankees so much flexibility moving forward. If Volpe comes back healthy and somehow rediscovers the form that made him a top prospect, great. The Yankees can use Trevino as a super utility player who provides Gold Glove caliber defense at multiple positions while spelling regular starters and keeping everyone fresh over the grueling season. But if Volpe continues struggling and shows he's not ready to be an everyday player, the Yankees don't have to panic or make a desperation trade. They've got Trevino ready to step in and handle starting shortstop duties without any drop-off in production. This becomes even more critical when you consider the Yankees' current roster construction. They've got Aaron Judge locked into right field as the face of the franchise and one of baseball's premier superstars. Jazz Chisholm has established himself as an elite defensive second baseman, who you absolutely do not want to move to accommodate other players. The outfield depth chart includes Jason Dominguez, who the team is desperate to get established as an everyday player after years of injury setbacks. They're bringing back Trent Grisham to man center field. They're reportedly pursuing Cody Bellinger to add another impact bat. And they've got Spencer Jones knocking on the door in the upper minors, ready for his shot at the big leagues. With all that talent and all those moving parts, having Pereira on the roster would have created a logjam with no clear path to playing time. The Yankees needed to convert some of that outfield depth into help at positions of greater need, and that's exactly what they did with the Trevino trade. It was addition by subtraction, moving a player with limited upside for the Yankees and acquiring someone who fills a critical need. The fact that Pereira has already been traded twice since leaving New York only reinforces that Brian Cashman made the right call. Let's also talk about the other moves the Yankees made because they provide important context for understanding the team's roster construction philosophy. The Yankees resigned Antonio Gomez, a catcher in their system who's attempting to convert to pitcher. Gomez is likely out for all of 2026 due to elbow surgery. So this is clearly a long-term project, rather than someone who will contribute immediately. But the Yankees obviously see something in his arm that makes them believe the position change could work. These are the kinds of creative roster moves that successful organizations make all the time, taking flyers on players with interesting tools and seeing if you can unlock hidden value. The common thread running through all these transactions is that the Yankees are adding organizational depth at multiple positions without breaking the bank or trading away significant assets. They're being smart and methodical, identifying areas where the roster could use reinforcement and making low-risk moves to address those needs. Ornelas at shortstop, Gomez as a pitching conversion project, bringing back Grisham. These are all calculated decisions that give the Yankees more options and greater flexibility as the season unfolds. What's particularly encouraging is that the Yankees' front office seems to have learned from past mistakes. For years, the team was criticized for lacking depth and organizational talent, forcing them to rely too heavily on a small core of stars, while injuries and underperformance decimated their roster. The lack of a viable backup shortstop behind Volpe last season was a perfect example of this problem. If Volpe had gone down with a serious injury mid-season, the Yankees would have been completely screwed. They had no one else on the major league roster who could adequately play the position. They would have been forced to either rush a prospect who wasn't ready, make a desperation trade, or cobble together a solution using players out of position. That's not a sustainable way to run a championship-caliber organization. You need depth everywhere. You need players who can step in without a massive drop-off in production, and you need organizational talent throughout your minor league system who can be called upon in emergencies. The Yankees are finally building that kind of infrastructure, and it's showing up in their recent roster moves. They're not just thinking about their opening day 25-man roster. They're thinking about what happens when injuries inevitably strike, when players underperform, when unexpected opportunities present themselves. The shortstop situation perfectly encapsulates this new approach. The Yankees have Volpe, who despite his struggles is still young and could potentially turn things around with proper adjustments and coaching. They have Trevino, who's proven he can produce at the major league level right now and might actually be the better option for a team trying to win immediately. They have Ornelas as organizational depth in case disaster strikes and multiple players go down simultaneously. And they have young prospects like Jason Dominguez developing in the minors, though he's clearly not ready for big league action yet. That's proper roster construction. That's having contingency plans for your contingency plans. That's how championship teams operate in the modern era where roster flexibility and depth have become just as important as top-end talent. The days of riding 5 stars and hoping everyone stays healthy are over. Baseball seasons are too long, the injury risks are too high, and the competition is too fierce to rely on such a fragile approach. The timing of these moves is also significant. By acting now in the early stages of the offseason, the Yankees are staying ahead of the market and identifying value before prices skyrocket. They're not waiting until spring training when options are limited and desperation drives up costs. They're methodically working through their needs list and checking boxes while maintaining financial flexibility for bigger moves if opportunities arise. This is proactive front office work at its finest, and it should give Yankees fans confidence that the organization has a clear plan for returning to championship contention. Looking at the broader competitive landscape, these moves also signal that the Yankees are fully committed to winning now. They're not rebuilding or taking a step back to regroup. They're loading up on talent, addressing weaknesses, and positioning themselves to compete with the best teams in the American League. The Red Sox and Orioles are improving. The Blue Jays have talent even if they're underperforming, and the Rays are always dangerous despite their limited resources. The Yankees can't afford to stand pat and hope last year's roster construction magically works better with another year of experience. The Jose Trevino trade, in particular, demonstrates the Yankees' commitment to winning immediately. They could have held on to Everson Pereira and continued hoping he'd develop into a contributor. Prospects are always seductive because they represent unlimited potential, the dream of what could be rather than the reality of what is. But the Yankees made the tough decision to admit Pereira wasn't in their immediate plans and converted him into a player who could help right now. That's the kind of ruthless decision-making that separates contenders from pretenders. And now that the Rays have already given up on Pereira and shipped him to Chicago, the Yankees look absolutely brilliant for cashing out when they did. They recognized diminishing returns on a prospect whose value was never going to be higher within their organization and extracted maximum trade value before the rest of baseball figured out what they already knew. That's elite asset management. And it's a big part of why the Yankees remain one of baseball's premier organizations despite not winning a World Series since 2009. The shortstop position is still going to be a storyline to watch as spring training approaches. Bo Bichette is the only impact-free agent shortstop available, and he'll likely resign with the Toronto Blue Jays rather than test the open market. That means external solutions are limited unless the Yankees want to make a trade, which seems unlikely given their current farm system depth. The most probable scenario is that Trevino and Volpe battle for the starting job in spring training, with the hot hand earning the opening day nod and the other player settling into a super utility role. From a pure talent perspective, Trevino deserves to be the starter. He's the better player right now in virtually every measurable category. But organizations hate admitting they were wrong about highly touted prospects, and there will be internal pressure to give Volpe every opportunity to prove last season was an aberration rather than his true talent level. The Yankees invested significant emotional and organizational capital into Volpe as the shortstop of the future, and it's hard to just pull the plug on that investment after 2 mediocre seasons. That said, the Yankees are trying to win a World Series. They don't have the luxury of treating 2025 as a development year for Anthony Volpe. Aaron Judge is in his prime and won't be around forever at his current superstar level. Garrett Cole is getting older and his window for elite performance is closing. The roster as currently constructed is built to win now, not 3 years from now, when Volpe might finally figure things out. If Trevino gives them the best chance to win, and all available evidence suggests he does, then he needs to be playing every day regardless of how that looks for organizational decision-makers who championed Volpe. The beauty of having both players is that the Yankees don't have to make a definitive choice until absolutely necessary. They can enter spring training with an open competition, evaluate both players over a 6-week period, and let performance dictate the final decision. If Volpe comes in and absolutely rakes while showing dramatic improvement in plate discipline and pitch recognition, great. The Yankees will happily ride the hot hand and use Trevino as their super utility weapon. But if Volpe continues struggling and Trevino keeps producing, the decision becomes obvious, even if it's uncomfortable. This situation also highlights why the Ornelas signing makes sense despite his offensive limitations. If both Volpe and Trevino are on the major league roster in some capacity, the Yankees need additional shortstop depth in the minors in case injuries strike. Ornelas provides that insurance at minimal cost with zero risk. If he never plays a single game for the Yankees, they've lost nothing. But if catastrophic injuries hit the middle infield and they need a warm body who can play adequate defense, Ornelas is sitting there ready to answer the call. That's smart organizational planning that pays dividends when chaos inevitably erupts during the season. The Yankees have also created a situation where they can be aggressive in pursuing upgrades at other positions without worrying about shortstop. If an impact bat becomes available via trade or if a premier starting pitcher hits the market, the Yankees can pursue those opportunities knowing their middle infield is stable. They're not desperate for external solutions at shortstop, which means they can't be price gouged by teams trying to extract maximum value from Yankees' desperation. That negotiating position is valuable in a league where every front office is trying to extract as much value as possible from every transaction. What Yankees fans should take away from all this is that their front office is operating with a clear plan and executing intelligently. These aren't random transactions made in panic or desperation. These are calculated moves designed to build organizational depth, create roster flexibility, and maximize the team's championship odds. The Jose Trevino trade is already looking like one of Brian Cashman's best moves in years, and it could end up being remembered as the steal of the decade if Trevino develops into a perennial all-star caliber player. The fact that Everson Pereira has already been traded twice since leaving New York is just icing on the cake. It validates everything the Yankees front office believed about his limited upside within their organizational structure. It proves they sold high on a prospect whose value was never going to be greater than it was at the trade deadline. And it demonstrates that even organizations known for player development magic like the Tampa Bay Rays couldn't unlock whatever potential might still exist in Pereira. As the offseason continues and the Yankees make additional moves, keep an eye on how the shortstop situation develops. It's going to be one of the most fascinating position battles in baseball come spring training, with significant implications for the team's championship aspirations. But regardless of who wins the starting job, Yankees fans can rest easy knowing their team has quality options and organizational depth at a position that looked like a complete disaster just a few months ago. The Yankees are building something special, and these under-the-radar moves are a huge part of that foundation. Championship rosters aren't built solely through blockbuster trades and 9-figure free agent signings. They're built through smart organizational decisions, shrewd asset management, and the accumulation of depth that allows teams to survive the inevitable challenges of a 162-game season plus playoffs. The Yankees are checking all those boxes, and the Jose Trevino trade stands as a shining example of how to operate in today's baseball landscape.